Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kenda Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have Rose. Rose has a bomb drop of December 6th, 2022, a date of marriage of 2011, and she is not familiar with contact type or energy levels. She says, I haven't had a conversation with my husband in a long time. Should I start one? I really need clarity myself. He keeps saying he has doubts about our relationship. Or should I still be patient and pretend I'm okay? So, Rose, honestly, this brings up more questions for me because it's not a lot of background. So I'm going to ask the questions. Does he live at home? Because you say you haven't had a conversation, which is not the same as not having spoken with him, not having had contact and communication. And you've clearly had contact and communication because you've said he keeps saying that he has doubts, which means there is communication because he says that. What does he keep saying he has doubts mean? Does that mean he's still in the home? What was your bomb drop like? You had bomb drop at December of last year. And is there an alienator? He has doubts, which means he hasn't been firm. And what we see oftentimes is that they're more firm at this point after this many months in. You're, 9 months in? You are still also in the beginning. So right now, what I'm going to tell you most likely, just based on the small amount of information, your contact type is probably boomerang because you have regular contact. If he lives at home still, I just put that as he is an at-home MLCer because he couldn't be a distant contactor, even if he's emotionally distant. And he may be a clinging boomerang because he hasn't said, I want out. It's more doubts. He's very fuzzy about it. In addition, he may be, and I don't know because I don't have the information, but he may be a low energy wallower. If he is still at home, he's being fuzzy about it. I'm not sure what I want. I really don't know, but he doesn't want to leave you, in other words. There hasn't been a clear line. So I don't want you pretending you're okay at all, ever. Pretending you're choosing joy. And I prefer joy than happiness because it's a choice, which is why I use that kind of language. I could have said happy, but I am fine with you pretending that because I want you to fake it in order to make it. So fake it till you make it is fake it in order to make it there. We choose joy by practicing it. But that doesn't mean you have to tell them that you're okay with this because the way you say, should I be patient? Yes. But pretend you're okay. If somebody's pretending they're okay, to me, that is they are making me think that they agree with what's happening or they're acceptable. It is not that they're accepting. You can accept something and not think it's acceptable, but that it is acceptable. There's a difference. You can say, I accept the process of what's happening. I don't agree that it is acceptable. In other words, if your spouse is having an affair, yeah, I know that. I accept it. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's acceptable. But when you say that you're okay with it, my connotation goes, that's making it seem acceptable. You're pretending something is acceptable when it's not. You can accept the reality of a situation. There's a difference. And it's good to communicate that difference. Hey, I don't like what's happening. I don't want it to be happening. I accept that it's happening. I mean, you could say the same thing in a natural disaster. Well, I don't like that there's a hurricane coming. I hate it. I mean, who likes that, right? But let's get real. It's coming. Let's get out of the house. Same idea here. I accept the storm in our relationship or in our lives, but I don't have to like it. I don't have to think it should be happening, but it is. So, should you have a conversation with it? Yeah, you can have these conversations. There are rules that people put out there. And some of them are no relationship talks, no this, no this, no, 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 no. I don't follow that. I think that it is good general advice. But the problem with general advice is it's this umbrella that doesn't cover everyone. And so it's not all hard and fast rules. Some of it is, if you're MLCer, brings up the conversation, what do? Scream and run? Oh no, they're going to talk about us. Or do you have the conversation but become defensive, because that might be one of the reasons they say don't do that. Do you have a conversation and it doesn't go the way you wanted it to, and you just get upset and it's hard for you and you come away feeling that was traumatic? Do they start yelling at you because you agree to this conversation? Who knows? Or do you just go with it? If you need to and it comes dangerous, you can try and steer it away. So the first one, where it's more acceptable, is not the really right word, but to have a relationship conversation, is if they bring it up, you may enter it with an awareness and cautiousness that I might want to steer out of this conversation or not, but let's see what happens first. Should you have a conversation? Should you start it? There are a few things to do with that. First thing, yes, you may. You may start it officially by saying, you know what, hon? We need to talk. Now, think about how your spouse handles that sort of thing. If I did that with Chuck, I could be meaning we need to talk, and I'm just saying it right now so that we set aside a time, or because everyone's around and we just need to settle down, and he would become immediately, he has an anxiety disorder, so anxious about it. To the point that and this is many years ago when he had the job during his midlife crisis that he had, if they called his name on the intercom and said, Chuck, can you come to the office? And he worked at a retirement home as a recreation coordinator. Could you come to the office? He was like, oh my God, why do they want me in the office? He'd have to stop at the bathroom to be sick on the way there. That's the level of the anxiety. If your spouse is like that, you may want to give some reassurances. Hey, can we talk? It's not scary. I'm not mad. Or you might have to put something in there. Let's say you can't talk until 6 tonight and it's 2 in the afternoon. Or it's 8 a.m. and you want to talk when they're going to be going over all day. You might, depending on the type of person, need to add a reassurance. It's okay. I just want to talk to you. But, it's about this. But I'm not mad. We're not going to, do any punishments, whatever. Helps them feel more comfortable about the upcoming conversation. Or maybe they're fine and like, yeah, she wants to talk about the kids and the schedule for this week. And you want to talk something else and they have an assumption, but they're not nervous. So approach that. Or you could just start a conversation. You could try and start a conversation that is steered into a deeper relationship talk. How's the weather? If you can get a conversation going and it happens organically, or it happens as though your spouse really starts it or turns it that way, but you kind of steered it and they aren't, you can manipulate the conversation. If you can figure out how to do that, that's great. And sometimes you might just need to say, I really need some clarity. And you might be pushing the bigger level of bomb drop of what that means. And you need to go in accepting it. Say, I need some clarity. What kind of doubts do you feel like you have? Can you, maybe you should wait until he says those things and then you're in the conversation. You need to know, what does that mean when you say you have doubts? You also should get into therapy. If he's in a midlife crisis, that might not help you as a couple. You go alone. You go with him if he goes with you. And then you make it so that you are allowed to continue on alone. And by allowed, I mean have an agreement with the counselor that they'll see you. Because they're going to possibly expect one way or another. And counseling can be traumatic when you go in with a couple and they use it either to drop the bigger bomb and leave you, or to criticize you and tell you everything you're doing wrong, or how they never want to be with you. Now they have this setting where they can do it in. They might try to get the counselors on their side. And if the counselor recognizes that this is the person who's not going to come back, the counselor might fall into that trap of, well, I want to help them, so I want both of them to come back. And so I need to gain this person's trust, the one that doesn't want to be here. And so they may feel like to you, they are not understanding your end of it or taking a side so that they can get both of you to come back next week because you're motivated and they're not, the other person isn't. So I want you to be careful with counseling. I'm really wanting you to have personal counseling. Okay? Starting the conversation is going to be difficult. If you can get it when he's already talking about that, go. But the next thing to do is practice. Write out some lines of how you would start something, or what you would say to him saying, honey, I'm having these doubts, and whatever phrases he usually use. What do you say next? Continue the conversation. Write out the dialogue. You know how he started it before. Now, what in the past do you wish you would have said? And then imagine, what do you think he'll say to this? And write a few scenarios. Maybe you know, well, he might say this, this, or this. And then what do I say to those things? Write it out and then practice it. Yeah, you can practice it. Practice it in a mirror. Practice having a voice that is empathetic, confident, accepting of what's going on, while at the same time you can say, you know what, this isn't how I feel. I don't feel that that a divorce is the best course for us. Maybe he says, I have to move out. And you say, I wish that weren't the case. But if that's what needs to happen for us to move forward so that someday we can be together or not, then that might, if that's the only way, and that's no guarantee, but if that's the only way for us to get through this as a couple, then sure, of course. I don't agree with it. You have to do it on your own. Because if you're going through this, then these are things you have to figure out on your own. So here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to help you leave me. I'm not going to help you with a divorce. I'm not going to help you as you have to move out. But I am going to accept that you need to do it. I'm not going to stand in your way. I'm not going to chain myself to the front door and not let you go. But it is something that you need to be able to do on your own so that you can know that you are able to do it and get out there and figure out who you are without using me as a lifeline or as a crutch, because that is going to keep you from figuring it out. And at the same time, I am here for you. I'm still here. If you got children, you're going to still have those co-parenting. And we'll figure out what our life like is, and as we go through figuring out who we are moving forward. So let me know if you want to add more information and if you have more questions, because I answer questions multiple times sometimes. And I will see everybody else in the next question.